Right, guys, today I'm going to be talking about the importance of feeling good after getting your hair cut. No, what I'm going to do today, probably in the last 6 months or so of my job, I've come across obviously an increasing number of clients, right? And the increasing number of clients isn't necessarily what you might think. It's not necessarily because of the lockdown. And I would say the vast majority of people that I've seen have the same problem, even if they come with a different presenting issue. The problem comes down to overthinking. It's such a huge element of mental health. Like, think about it, like anxiety. Now, anxiety is useful. It's what makes you look both ways before you cross the street. It's what makes you make yourself look presentable before you go out in the morning. It's a good thing to have, and yet people see it as a bad thing, and usually because they're overanalyzing a situation and seeing something in it that isn't there. Depression, okay, like depression, not all depression is obviously caused by overthinking. Some of it's medical and some of it's caused by other issues, but some forms of depression are caused by overthinking because you're just sitting there analysing everything and you're not enjoying your life. You spend most of your time thinking. Now, I don't necessarily think that you can ever stop overthinking. I think if you overthink, it's probably because you're conscientious, you're intelligent, you've got a high IQ or average to high IQ, right? It's actually not a bad thing. The same as anxiety, it's not a bad thing. It's just the way that you use it. And that's the situation that so I've been thinking a lot about this. I know I've not done many videos or anything lately. I've been really busy, but also I've been thinking a lot about stuff and trying to sort of reflect on some of the videos I've done in the past and whether there's any sort of different ways of explaining things. And because the overthinking is such a common thing, part of the reason I think that people have begun to overthink more is because they've had more time on their hands. Like, it's not necessarily that they're coming to counselling because of the lockdown and because of COVID and all that. It's because the lockdown has given them time to think. Their lives have slowed down. Things aren't as rushed anymore. Haven't got to make excuses not to see these people that you don't want to see. You haven't got to worry about this, that and the other and all the plans that you're making, or the things that your missus has planned 6 months in advance that you don't want to do most of them, but you've got to go along with it, you know, and all that. So life has almost kind of changed for a lot of people just because they've had too much time on their hands to think. And now that things are starting to pick back up again, obviously you've got to go back out into the outside world and you've got to pick all those things up again. And maybe you want to, maybe you don't. And nonetheless, if you think about all the times during your life when you're not anxious, usually it's because you're busy, right? It's because you're doing something. Now, I feel like I've made this mistake as well, right? Because it's often you associate relaxation with doing nothing, right? It's like relaxation is kick back, put a movie on, don't think about anything, you know, be calm, be quiet, be tranquil, float in midair with robes on, like screaming and all this, right? But I don't necessarily believe that that's the case. Now, it is for some people, and you know, I know I'm having a laugh, but meditation is a brilliant thing, and I would, you know, definitely recommend it. However, it doesn't work for everybody. Like, meditation takes a lot of practice. Some people haven't got the patience. Some people don't even really have the ability to do it, or some people find it a bit kind of, what's the word? They're a bit sceptical about it, so they won't put the effort in to get the results. But what I've found, I can give you a good example of this as well. You know, I like an example. Where I work, so I work in a studio in my garden. So I might be in a situation where I'm having an argument with Bex in the house. A client turns up through the back gate. I can't just pop my head out the back door and go, sorry, mate, just having an argument with the missus. Let me straighten this situation out and I'll be out in 10 minutes. I've got to go. So whether it be that Bex has said something out of order or I've said something out of order, I've learned over time to separate that so that when I come out to do my work, I'm focused on the person, I do the job in hand, and then I go back in. But this is the thing, because when I go back in, I might be like, you're right, Bex, as though I've completely forgotten that we had an argument. And she's been stewing on it sometimes. And, well, you know, she's like, no, I'm fucking not all right. And I think, oh, shit, yeah. And I'm in a very, very different place to the one that I was in an hour ago because I haven't been sitting and dwelling on the problem. Whereas Bex might have been sick because she's just sitting in the house. She's been thinking about what a bastard, just walking off like that, etc., etc. And I have to say, we have spoken about that a long time ago, and it's a sort of understanding that we have, but it's still something that happens, right? So I've been distracted and she hasn't. But then the thing with distraction is that some people will say distracting themselves doesn't work either, because they know that they're trying to distract themselves, right? Like people that self-harm say this quite a lot when you look through the websites and they say, you know, method number 1, distraction. They're like, well, I'm only doing this because I'm trying to stop myself from doing that, which makes me think about doing that more, and then I end up doing that anyway. So the distraction technique doesn't always work, right? But with this overthinking, I think it's about using that energy that is going in, you know, in your mind for the right thing rather than the wrong thing. It's what you're overthinking about is the problem. But as I said, relaxation doesn't necessarily mean sitting down. Like you know, I like a video game. Right? I enjoy my video games. I've got PS5 and whatnot. I enjoy that. But if I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because that's what I sometimes do to unwind. But I play very complicated games. I don't like simple games that are like Call of Duty, where it's just bang, shoot. You know, I'm not interested in that sort of thing. Like, I like complicated things, and it's the same with my job. My job really suits me because it's very complicated. But I spend a lot of time with my job. I don't just do my job. I spend a lot of time reading about my job, listening to podcasts, learning about things. Like, I'm spending a lot of time doing that. And I've been sort of doing little experiments here and there. And I find if I sit down and I'm not really in the mood for a game, and I'm trying to put a game on, my mind will go on to all sorts of shit. And I can be really hard on myself. I can beat myself up. I can worry about the future. I can think about getting old and how that might feel, and what's it going to be like when I'm 60 if I reach that age, and getting all that crap, right? But if I put something complicated on and I'm in the right mood for it, I'm not thinking about anything. It's just like, Jesus Christ, is it 10 o'clock already? Fuck. Like, and it's like that. So I strongly believe that for me to relax, I need to be doing something complicated. Like, if I'm in a bad way and I'm sort of a little bit negative about something, if I take my dog for a walk and put on a podcast like Jordan Peterson or something, Simon Sinek, all those people that I've mentioned before that I kind of really get a lot from watching their stuff, it'll take my mind off the problem. I'm not doing it to distract myself. I'm doing it to learn something. Now, I've said before, part of that's an ego thing because I want to be good at my job and I want people to leave here and say, yeah, he was really good. So I do try and learn as much as I can to be good at my job. But I also want to be helpful because I'm conscientious, which is another thing that's like that, you know, like that energy current where you can use it to heal, like defibrillate someone, bring them back to life, or you can use it to kill, electrocute them and shock them to death, right? Same energy current, different use. And it's the same with this. So I really think if you find that relaxation in it as a sort of a tool, if you like, doesn't work for you, it could be because you're relaxing in the wrong way, and therefore you're not using your brain, and therefore your brain is just going to start thinking, right, okay, I've got nothing to think about, I've got nothing to worry about, nothing to solve. I know I'll pick that really complicated thing that I can't ever find a fucking answer to that, but I'll just do that, and I'll just think about that for a few hours. And it could be at like 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, right? And your brain picks that up and off you go. You know, whereas if you've been like doing something complicated during the day, your brain is more likely to be tired later on, and therefore help you sleep as well. So I know this isn't like a bloody, as I always say, it's not a prescription for all your problems, and this won't work for everybody. But nonetheless, I certainly find for myself, and having worked with a lot of different, I mean, I was speaking to a guy a few weeks ago, started learning German, you know. Another person started learning, bought an electric drum kit, started learning how to do that, you know, like something complicated, something that's going to take you some effort, but also something that you get something from. Because that's the other thing. Like my job, I find it easier to do it with my job than I do with gaming, because gaming, I don't really get a lot from that. Like there's nothing, I can't say in 10 years time, oh, I completed that game and that's great. It's just something that I do for enjoyment. Whereas my job, if I crack something complicated and I sort of understand something complicated, that's going to mean that I do my job better, which is going to mean that I eventually will do better in my job, right? And I'll be more useful, I'll be more helpful, make more difference to people, etc., etc. So sometimes it's trying to find that stuff where it's kind of a, sorry, I just had a text to put me off a bit. You need an incentive, right? Something to get from it. It's like I've said to you before. If I was to say to you, right, I'll give you 10 grand a week to go and do the Catch to 5K, and then when you come home, learn 2 hours worth of Japanese, you're going to do it. But if I said to you, if you'd said to me, like, I think if I did 2 hours of Japanese a day and learned to do the Catch to 5K, I think I'd feel a bit better, and you're not doing it, it's obvious that feeling better isn't worth the same value to you as £10,000. And then you've got it arse backwards, haven't you then? Because money's more important than your welfare. And I know, obviously, that leads to the eternal question of why is it that we know something's bad for us, but we keep doing it. I always remember this video I watched about these guys in a lab that were doing experiments on human fat and working out how fat can really hurt your arteries and the problems it causes and all that. And then they go out and have a McDonald's for dinner, you know. And he's like, why do we do that? And because you know that one McDonald's ain't going to kill you, you know what I mean? But again, it's that sort of the persistent attitude towards things. So one last thing that's just sprung to mind is also the intentionality with which you do things, right? So the intent behind it. So sometimes you will have to physically put time aside to sit down and try and do this, because your default setting may well be to overthink things. So you're just going to be sitting there doing it. It's not, there's no thought behind it, ironically. It's just a default setting. So, you know, you've got a bit of time on your hands, you sit down, you start worrying about bills, you start worrying about how many jobs you've got in the next month, you start worrying about how secure your job is, you start worrying about where your girlfriend is, you start worrying about how your kids are, all these things, because that's your default setting that you're used to doing when you sit down. And you might have developed that fucking years ago. That might be way overused and not very productive anymore, but you still use it because it's default setting, right? So by the way you change anything like that is to sit down with it intentionally. You can't just hope it's going to get better. You've got to intentionally do that. So put half an hour aside to try to do something complicated, but also something that you get into. I know it's not easy. I know that. But the thing is, it's like I was watching a Jocko Willink video this morning, and he was saying, stop trying to do things that make you happy. Like, what might make you happy right now is go and eat 3 slices of cake and then go back to bed, right? But that's not going to do much good in your life. So he was saying, you know, do things that make you better. Do things that challenge yourself, you know, and things like that. And I find that sort of, I love all that sort of thing, you know what I mean? It's a really good way of looking at life. It really is, but it's not most of our default settings. So you've got to learn to change that, and that means that you've got to do it with intention. And that means that it might be quite difficult, and that means that you might not want to do it, and it means that you might do it for 2 days and then feel like on the 3rd day you don't want to do it. But that's when you've got to pick yourself up. That's when you've got to say, look, I'm going to feel miserable today because I felt miserable for the last fucking 6 months. Chances are I'm probably going to feel miserable today. No point with all that, today's going to be a positive day and all that sort of thing, because that's probably not going to work. What will work, though, if you keep doing it, is to think, right, today could be a shit day no matter what I do, so I might as well do something that could potentially make me feel better, because I'm going to have this day anyway. So if I'm going to find it difficult to get through, I might as well try and do that. And this, again, you know what I mean, this is the difficult thing, because I've spoke to people in the past where they've done like worked out what a good day might look like for them, and then their homework has been do that day and then come back and see how you got on with it, and they'll do it. And they'll come back and say, oh, it was really good. I felt so much better by the end of the day. How many times did you do it? Well, only the once. You know what I mean? It's like, well, that's the problem, right? So this is where obviously the discipline comes in, you know, like the discipline equals freedom, that type of scenario. But that's a different matter. I don't really want to get into this. I've already been 13 minutes. But look, that's the crux of the matter, right? So I hope that's been helpful in some way. I'm sorry that I've not been that active on my page lately. I've just had way too much going on to give it any time. I'm not sure how long it'll be before I get to do another one of these. But this was in my mind because I've been working with a hell of a lot of people that have been going through this sort of thing lately. And I've been seeing some massive improvements with those people from doing things like this. It really does work, but you've just got to work at it. So you need to think about it as it'll work if you work. Anyway, yeah, that's cool. See you later.